Feminism has waged war with family. These are damaged people that are trying to perpetuate, honestly, the eradication of traditional values. Hello, angels. Welcome back to my channel. Just want to say thank you guys so much for your condolences. The show must go on. We're back in action. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling great. I have a very controversial topic that I'm going to be talking about today. So before we even begin to get into the video, I want to state that this is coming from a biblical perspective. As you guys know, it's no secret that I have been heavily integrating my faith into my content. That will not change from here on out if you needed to hear that out of my mouth. And these are things that I feel convicted about speaking about on my channel or on my platforms, period. So if you are in fact not a Christian or a practicing Christian, then you can exit the video, because I'm not really interested in having a little debate with you in my comment section, because I don't even know why you're here. If you are not going to already be of that same exact faith, Christian faith, I don't know why you would even be watching this video, because that's what I'm pretty much basing my commentary off of and where my research is coming from. So now let's get into today's topic, which is why I am in fact not a feminist. So I actually saw a comment which had inspired this video, which I'm going to read to you right now, where at the something new one said, "Hey Aisha, great episode. I listened to the podcast this morning. Could you maybe expound or do an episode of why you stated we shouldn't be feminists? I was shocked hearing that, considering your previous videos, but I do understand your content is changing and will reflect your faith and spiritual journey. Is this something you've always felt? Thank you." Just to answer that question before I get into the video, I've always had traditional viewpoints. I think at certain points in my content, more of the, I guess, I don't know the correct term I want to use, so I'm just going to use this word loosely, but more liberal type of ideologies were sprinkled in some of my content, especially back when I first started my channel. But ideally, as it pertains to what I desire within the confinements of a marriage and relationships, have always been traditional. I didn't label myself as someone that was specifically not a feminist, however, and on the contrary, I also have never specifically labeled myself as a feminist either. So it's just now where I'm at in my faith and what it is that I believe and stand on business on, as everyone's saying right now, is that's where I'm at. And I can actually say that with conviction that I am in fact not a feminist. Now, let's get on into the video. Oh my gosh, so much research involved in this topic, and I wanted to be very, very concise with you guys. My sources will be linked in the description box below so that you guys know where I'm getting all of my information from. Okay, so essentially, we've all heard of being a feminist, and there are a bunch of different definitions, and I guess the definition is pretty much based on who you are and what time period is being discussed. That is my favorite synopsis of it so far, considering the fact that I do know that feminism is based on like having equality in social, political, and another type of belief, essentially. But I liked this one the most as far as defining what it is, because I do believe that to be true. And this is partially due to the fact that what feminism is and what it was is simply not what it is right now. So let's just take it back to the beginning. So the history of feminism started originally in 1848 with the Seneca Falls Convention, which is originally known as the Women's Rights Convention. And I don't know if many of you know this, but Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Lucretia Mott, I hope I said her name correctly, and also later Susan B. Anthony are the people that spearheaded this entire movement, which was popularized by anti-slavery activists. So interestingly enough, Stanton and Mott actually met 8 years prior to the convention. And what they were doing was they were traveling the world together with their husbands and fighting for the liberation of slaves. Now, ironically enough, they were denied admittance to the convention that they were going to attend based on their sex. So when you actually think and you consider what the ideal woman was back then, or what the ideal married woman pretty much looked like. And I also want to just state that although I am not married myself, you guys know I really do respect the sanctity of marriage. Marriage is something that is super important, especially in society, especially in today's society. It is really, really needed more than ever. And not just marriage for the sake of marriage. No, like kingdom marriages are what we actually need. So just based on the things that I have researched also, I have found that modern feminism and Christianity are pretty much fundamentally incompatible. And the definition, like I said, of feminism today, modern day feminism is radically different than what it was founded upon way back when. And that's what I want to get into with you guys. So when you actually consider what the typical traditional woman in a marriage gender role was, from a biblical perspective in Proverbs 31, we've all heard about the Proverbs 31 woman. We see that woman that from a biblical context had way more liberties than women in the 1800s. And so in that scripture, you see that a Proverbs 31 woman was described as operating a business. She also had her own income and her own prerogative to use that income as she saw fit. She was also a property owner and also a CEO of the vineyard. So I understand that when it comes to this topic, that feminism has always advocated essentially for equality in men and women in all domains. But I want to really specifically shed light on the traditional gender roles in family and marriage. And like I said, although I am not married myself, I do notice that there is a specific correlation with families that do embrace more of that traditional structure, and as opposed to women that are not. Like, I can just say straight off the top of my head, and I know this is going to be so controversial for some people, but there is a huge difference. And I'm speaking of a healthier household dynamic of women that have, grown up in a two-parent healthier type of dynamic household than women that have grown up that have, a single parent household. And specifically when there is no father that's present or actively present in that child's life. You always see the same issues of there being more of an emphasis on being hypersexual. There's more of a likelihood of them participating in, relationships with men, kind of searching for that father figure from a human psychology standpoint. And again, that is not to preclude the fact that these issues may not happen if you also grew up in a two-parent household. However, you are more susceptible to them when you don't have that two-parent household and you have a healthy emphasis on healthy dynamic and have an active father or even mother too in your life. So I just want to put that out there. I'm speaking very general and stereotypical, like, for this episode. So I don't want you guys to think like, oh, well, because you always have people in the comment section talking about the exceptions to the rule. Well, surprise, surprise, the exception never makes the rule. So we're not talking about that. Back on track here. So like I said, let's discuss what the success of the early women's movement essentially was. So by 1890, which was 42 years after the first Women's Rights Convention, many states had enacted laws which were granting women property rights, equal guardianship over their children, and legal standing to make contracts and bring suit. You also saw the integration of more women that were allowed to get an education, more women that were attending college. And also back then in two Western territories, which was Wyoming and Utah, women voted on an equal basis with men. So it did take another 29 years, but women were finally granted the right to vote with the passage of the 19th Amendment in the year 1919. The first wave of feminism influenced society in a very positive and biblical way. And however, despite society moving in like a righteous direction, the most serious overstep of feminism essentially was perpetrated by the strongest driving force, which was Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She, in 1895, had published the Woman's Bible. And this was a heretical anthology which was challenging the authority of scripture on all things that were gender related. And so from a biblical perspective, the first wave of the women's rights movement, it aligned with a lot of biblical principles. However, modern feminists, they could have, returned to that first wave of feminism, right? Which was equality, which that is biblical, and I've spoken about this in videos in the past, where we are equal. However, we are complementary to one another. Men and women are complementary to one another. There are things that men are going to be great at that we are not. And there are things that we are going to be great at that men are simply not. And I don't really have an issue with that. So you have to really ask yourself, like, when you think about the fundamental, things that feminists tend to stand on, which we will get into, it's all rooted in bitter women, if I'm really being honest. Women that are anti, family, tradition, et cetera, and it's not coming from a happy place. It's really not. These are damaged people that are trying to perpetuate, honestly, the eradication of traditional values. And where does it stem from? Where is the actual foundation of where these, honestly, bitter ideologies are coming from? So, like I said, the first wave they could have followed before Stanton came out with that Woman's Bible thing. They could have, feminism could have stayed what Susan B. Anthony and Lucretia Mott had essentially created it to be. However, this is what I'm talking about when I say that modern day feminism is anti many things, starting with modern day feminism being anti-male. And what do I mean by that? Well, modern feminism, okay, listen very closely to this, is essentially a counterfeit solution to the real issue of inequality of women in a sinful society. When we think about what causes most harm from a biblical perspective, a lot of the times it has to do with sin. So let's just even say, coming from a broken home and things like that, whatever sin has caused those transgressions has resulted in, the movement of being anti-family, anti-men in the home, all of these different things. And so I want to read this verbatim. So Dr. Philip Carl Salzman, right? He was a professor of anthropology at McGill University. And he basically was discussing what modern feminism is really about. And I'm going to paraphrase, where he was saying that contemporary feminism, despite rejecting anti-female sexism, is criticized for not promoting gender-blind standards. However, that view just suggests that feminism, instead of treating individuals like complex human beings, it rather focuses on gender differences, and it advocates in the interests of females. And that potentially leads to what can be described as anti-male sexism, which actually exacerbates the gender divide by prioritizing women's interests and potentially causing an imbalance that contradicts the early feminist goal of combating injustice. I mean, that's really all that it is. Another thing, modern feminism is also anti-family. Okay. Feminism has waged war with family. All right. There was a radical feminist, and her name was Simone du Beauvoir. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And she expressed these ideologies over 50 years ago. And she was saying, and I quote this, okay, as long as the family and the myth of the family and the myth of maternity and maternal instinct are not destroyed, women will still be oppressed. I'm sorry, what did you just say? You mean to tell me that this is the type of stuff that modern day feminists perpetuate? Oh, you don't have to, have kids. You need to be a boss. You need to do what's better for you. You need you. And if there's one thing I learned, which is a completely separate subject, but when you think about and you study Satanism, Satanism is not the act of worshiping the devil. Satanism is actually the act of worshiping yourself. And the more I've studied and gotten deep into my faith, I realized like everything, even things that I have promoted at one point on my channel, was all about you, and like make sure you are doing what's good for you and you. And it's like, no, like what does God's word say? And this modern day feminist movement goes directly against those things. Yet we have women that want to say that they want men that are providers for them, which is what I do promote on this channel, which has always been the message. Like you want that, but you can't be a feminist at the same time. The ideologies, they do not move harmoniously together. They don't gel harmoniously together. There was also a shocking book by the name of Full Surrogacy, all right? Feminism Against Family. And the author of this book is Sophie Lewis. And she declares that where pregnancy is concerned, let pregnancy be for everyone. And I know that might sound good to the naked ear, but actually, no, it's not. What she means by this is let's, in short, overthrow the family. Okay. She claims that family is the headquarters. And I want to read this verbatim here because I don't want to get this mixed up. Of discomfort, coercion, molestation, abuse, humiliation, depression, battery, murder, mutilation, loneliness, blackmail, exhaustion, psychosis, gender straitjacketing, racial programming, and bourgeoisement, whatever that means. Now, according to this militant modern feminism, family is simply a myth, okay? The maternal bond is just pure fiction, all right? These are illusions and the source of women's oppression. So essentially, our God-given ability to produce life is a form of oppression. Wow. That's really rich. You learn something new every day. You mean to tell me that this is what's being perpetuated in society? If we're going to continue on with these types of ideologies, then where are we going next as a society? If we are going to demonize and remove our natural giving ability to nurture and create life, where have we gone as a society? It's just really not making any sense to me. Like, anyways, and that mentality also is just simply destroying women. That's what it's doing. It's destroying women. And so feminists like Lewis and like, Herman, Beauvoir, they're all engaged in an outward war, essentially, against the traditional family structure and the very institution that God had created to nurture and protect women. Family structures are supposed to protect women, supposed to protect children. And you're saying basically to eradicate that. So it's okay to literally just, it's a free for all in society. Oh, who cares about being a mom? Oh, you don't have to do this. Let me tell you something that I've noticed. Okay. You know what I think is so funny? I noticed that there's a common theme where every single time someone lives a wild, reckless lifestyle, as soon as they get settled and maybe they become a mother, they get married, I notice that they all of a sudden have this change of heart. They don't want to go out and have threesomes on the weekends with their husbands anymore because they want to stay at home and actually be a mom. They don't want to go out partying and doing Molly every other week because they want to actually stay home and be a mother. Why is that? What do you call that? Is that oppression of the maternal instinct? Is that what you like to call it? How is it that is unanimous amongst, I remember I was watching Real Housewives of Potomac, and we all know like Ashley and like her ex-husband and like that whole debacle. I haven't watched it in forever, but like, you know what I mean? And her her ex-husband, they used to participate in sexually deviant behaviors. Yes, I said that. It's sexually deviant. And as a result, once she had her kid, she kind of had a conversation with him and was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. I don't want to participate in these types of activities. Like, I'm a mom now. Like, my priorities have changed. You feel different as a mother. It's just natural. You're supposed to evolve out of those things that you used to do. You're supposed to change because you are a mother. Okay? And modern feminism essentially wants to perpetuate the fact that that is just simply oppression. What? That's oppression. So we're all supposed to just never stop participating in these deviant things. And that's why when I read that quote that said that, it's basically a counterfeit solution for equality in women rooted in sin, essentially. That's where I feel like that also corresponds there. Because from my perspective, no one in their core, okay, woman in their core truly wants to be giving her body to, Peter, Paul, Harry, all these different guys. No one's respecting her. No one is marrying her. And you have a lot of bitter women out there that are preaching the exact opposite. Do whatever you want. Take this from him. Don't have feelings. This is disgusting, honestly. And you're not going to live a happy and fulfilled life actually following those bitter ideologies. Because if you actually think about it, and you shouldn't even have to really think, it should just automatically register. This is rooted in being bitter and resentful. Something happened to you. When you think about Ariana Grande, something is wrong. Her type is someone else's man. She strategically only seeks men that are less attractive because she's attractive, and she calculates, he's going to know he's never going to land anyone like me. And also, I love the rush I get from taking him from someone else. This is so fun for me. And you'll have modern feminists saying, oh, free world, do whatever you want. It's okay. Like, that's my fave. Like, go on, fave. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, obviously, like, if a man can be taken, then, like, let her have him. Always no regard, no respect for the sanctity of marriage, the covenant of what marriage is. Wow, that's like really like no fear of God right there. That's really insane. Anyways, another example is there was an essay written by this woman named Ellen Herman, which I was referring to before. And she actually identifies the family, especially the Western patriarchal, bourgeois and child-centered nuclear family, as the most important source of women's oppression. Again, another example of how in modern day feminism, having children is one of the things that is perpetuated as oppressing women. Modern feminism is also anti-mother, okay? There's someone named Betty Friedan, and she is actually credited for ushering in that second wave of feminism with her 1963 Game Changer for Gals, The Feminine Mystique, all right? And this was a book that she had written, and the Washington Post said that this book almost single-handedly launched the second wave of feminism. And she's also referred to as the mother of modern feminism. And she herself has a very low opinion on motherhood herself. Wow. What do I mean by this? Well, according to this article, which I will have linked in the description box below, she compared women who embrace motherhood full-time to concentration camp victims. American women were not, of course, being readied for mass extermination, but they are suffering a slow death of mind and spirit. And this is inside of her book on pages 367 and also page 369. So you're saying that the work of a mother is unfulfilling, it's mundane, and it's remedial. And it causes a woman's mind and spirit to die a slow and painful death. That's from the mother of modern feminism. Yeah. So in the Bible, God actually does validate the struggle of women to become mothers. Okay. In the stories of Sarah, Rebecca, Hannah, and Elizabeth. And he validates the work that women do in Proverbs 31. So for modern day feminists to turn that and twist that into making it seem like something that is oppressive and negative. So how did you get here? It's so interesting, these types of movements. How did you get here? If your mother had decided that she didn't even want to have kids, first of all, you wouldn't even be here, all of these different things. And I think it's so important as we step into, when we look from the lens of what the world wants to do, the more and more I understand that scripture where God says to be separate from the world, do not conform to the things of this world. I understand that more and more because the world's concepts, it's just Satan's playground. So I want to conclude with a question. Can you in fact be Christian and also be a feminist? And I think that depends on what definition you align with. To me, when it comes to the subject of feminism, I feel that I align with having equal rights, politically, socially, and even economically. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think also those things are basic human fundamentals. I don't find that to be, this is a feminist thing that, the equal pay sort of thing. But also I want to mention to you guys that if you honestly look at statistics right now, a lot of women, especially in the area of education, I know that some people tend to think and feel that men dominate the world or whatever the case is. And I mean, the statistics are women are by far surpassing men by a lot, which is why you have the argument of going 50-50, which is a completely different subject. You have men complaining about there only being 1% of men that make over six figures. And you have the argument of women, not wanting to get married and be in traditional dynamics because of the fact that the amount of money or the success that they have achieved is largely incongruous to our male counterparts. So when you look at those things, it's like when it comes to the feminism movement of what's not equal or what have you, if that were in fact part of the argument, in that context, it's eradicated because women are doing a lot better than men, or if not doing the same things as men. So I think that when it comes to just the definition, it really just depends on how you define feminism. If you align with the original goals of feminism, which is something that I align with, then that's fine. However, what I do not align with is modern day feminism. I also don't agree with, even when it comes to the overly sexualizing yourself and do whatever you want. Like when I think about having a future family and things like that, I often find that within the feminism movement, there are all of these subcategories. There's a million different names for every single thing, right? And there's, be, I don't know, sexually positive about this or what have you, whatever the movement is. I can't divulge too much on it because I'm not super educated on it. All I can say from a surface level is I don't want to live in a society where, or support the idea of a society where my children to be would be looking up to people like Cardi B or, living like Ariana Grande per se, because they're, by my standards and how I live my life is under God. That's just what I view over my life. And I'm not a sinless person. No one on this earth is. However, as I strive daily to, essentially die to myself daily, and I think about the ways and how I want to live my life and how I would want to raise my family with my husband, it is certainly in no way, shape, or form in the context of what modern day feminism is, because I do want my husband to be able to provide for our family. And I'm not threatened by my husband making the decisions. And I think oftentimes when people think about feminism, it's almost like they feel like certain things are being taken from them. And I think that's why the lines get so blurred, because even when it comes to the topic of being submissive to your husband, biblically, by no means is it stating that, because of that, you have no voice, you can't do anything, you're just treated as a second-class citizen. That is not what that means in any capacity. I think all of us need to do our research, to be informed on all sides, because even in the Bible, it states that men should also love their wives, like Christ loved the church. There are scriptures to back these things up. And I just feel like it's just a slippery slope when it comes to modern day feminism. So for instance, in this article, which I will have linked in the description box below, it says that Americans are delaying marriage and more maybe foregoing the institution altogether. And at the same time, the share of children born outside of marriage now stands at 41%, up from just 5% in 1960. So while the debate continues as to whether divorce rates have been rising or falling in recent decades, it is clear that in the longer term, the share of people who have been previously married is rising as is remarriage. What I find significant about even that little excerpt that I just read is that, and I was talking to my god sister about this, it seems that this ideology of not wanting to be a stay-at-home mom and that being looked down on. There are, in fact, women that look down on stay-at-home moms as though that is not a full-time job, as though raising up a human to be an outstanding citizen of society is, in fact, not a fulfilling job. Or what is it that happened to you that makes you feel like it's so unfulfilling, or you're not good enough in society because you are a stay-at-home mom and you're, not working and being a mother at the same time. I refuse to, submit to the ideology that you can be as hands-on as you need to be as a mother and still work a full-time job. Now, I do understand that circumstances are different for everyone. If you are a single mother, that's going to look different for you. But I guarantee you, if that woman was offered help, a true partnership where someone that can help her raise those children, I'm sure she would take it, because nobody wants to. It takes a village to even raise children. It takes a village. So there's no way that anyone can convince me that, or try and convince me with the argument of, oh, you're a stay-at-home mom, that's all you do, like as though that's going to make me feel like I'm less than in society, because it's not. Because honestly, a lot of you wish that you were doing that. And that's just the cold hard truth. Now, I want to say there was a quote that I really liked that C.S. Lewis had said, and I want to reiterate that men and women were created by God to be equal in value, but different in their roles. God had not designed for us to be the same, and he didn't design for us to do all the same things. And that's why he created women to fulfill certain jobs and be naturally good at certain jobs, and then vice versa for men. And this quote by C.S. Lewis says that we will not find lasting fulfillment. We will not find lasting peace. Why? Because God cannot give us happiness and peace apart from himself, because it is not there. There is no such thing. Basically saying that you're not going to live a fulfilling life like that, and this is why I want to talk about this in my testimony in my podcast that I'm going to do when I talk about modern, age sort of practices, and things like that. I wanted to share my testimony coming from those types of practices and, those ideologies, because I no longer am in agreement with them. And so as I grow, I want to share this journey with you guys. I'm not here saying I've arrived. I'm a student of life still, that I do still adhere to. And I'm still growing in my faith and growing in God. I'm not trying to in any way sit here on a platform and act like I know it all. I'm just trying to share where I'm at with you guys and have healthy discourse about it. And again, like, if you are not on this same path, I'm not interested in debating with anybody, because I don't go and do that. I don't walk in Dunkin' Donuts and ask for Burger King. You know what I mean? Because I understand that I cannot have it my way there. If I want to have it my way, I have to go to Burger King in order to get Burger King. I align with Burger King, but I'm not going to go somewhere where I don't agree and then complain about, everything that I don't like when I shouldn't be here in the first place. You understand, picking up what I'm laying down. Okay. And I also want to state that there was actually a secular study done in the UK Daily Mail that confirmed this fact, that women are actually less happy nowadays, despite, over 40 years plus of feminism, according to a new study. And despite actually having more opportunities than they've had before, there's a lower sense of well-being and life satisfaction. And what does that tell you? I'm not saying that you can't be fulfilled working and being a mother. That is not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is at the core of who we are fundamentally as women, and from a biblical context, there is such joy and pleasure in creating life and being able to nurture that life. It's also kind of like, working, but not because you have to. And you're like on this hamster wheel of go, 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 but because you're passionate about it and it is something that you want to do. That is way different than you trying to perpetuate a culture of essentially it being meaningless if you are in fact someone that is a stay-at-home mom, in comparison to a woman that's very ambitious, does not want to have children. You shouldn't, neither party should look down on the other, is what I'm trying to say. And I also want to state that it is not lost on me that women in general are still marginalized in some ways, belittled, abused in different circumstances. That is not lost on me. And I understand that sometimes in society, we will still encounter prejudice as women. I think overall, we have done a lot better in society, especially since the first wave of feminism has began. And I just wanted to end on this note where talking about traditional complementarianism, which essentially I feel like people get it confused because they have such extreme views. And like I said before, a lot of people assume that a wife's role is to just be subservient and be like a doormat to a man in any and all circumstances. And her husband is this superior, domineering type of person who is a tyrant and oppresses the woman. And those views do not align at all with scriptural biblical context on relationships. So that eradicates that right there when it says in the Bible to be submissive. That is not in fact what it is talking about. To be clear, biblical submission actually never dominates or oppresses or, demeans or abuses another individual. It actually expresses itself through sacrificial love and honor and servanthood and respect and encouragement and kindness. And it is essentially just treasuring that other person. So this means that in complementarianism, which I'm talking in the context of a marriage, is viewing masculinity and femininity as good and affirming and the perfect harmonious blend. And what this is going to look like, how this manifests in every individual's life, is going to look slightly different from person to person, based on your interests, your temperament, and other things. However, it's not, what you think of where it's like 1950s television stereotype of like a woman in the kitchen cooking and cleaning and slaving away, and then her husband just coming home from work and plopping on the couch and doing absolutely nothing while she continues to cook and clean. That's not what it's about at all. And I want to end on reading this passage because I thought it was so profound, where it says that biblical womanhood is more than a career path or the ability to reproduce and nurture, because every human being carries a unique facet of God's own nature. We glorify him by reflecting that nature to the world. Women can reveal God's glory in ways unique to their gender, as can men. In this confusing day where gender identity has become a matter of preference, it is vital that those who know and love God and his word remain grounded in his truth. God designed men to reflect his glory through biblical manhood. He designed women to reflect other aspects of his glory through biblical womanhood. When we all seek to honor him in every part of our lives, we will live harmoniously, fulfilling complementary roles as we carry out the mission Jesus gave to all of us, which is Matthew 28, verse 19. So I want to have some healthy discourse in the comment section down below. I know this is a pretty convoluted subject to talk about. As I was doing a lot of research, I also stumbled upon a debate on Vice about, it was conservatives and also feminists. And there was actually one woman in there that was a pro-life feminist, which I found to be very, very interesting. And I enjoyed the conversation that they were having. And I realized that, like, it's really just about having a conversation and hearing another person out. And being respectful, of course. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in and watching. Let me know, what are your thoughts down below? Where do you stand as it pertains to modern day feminism? Were you someone that has ever felt like there was a time where you felt like you were a feminist? How did your ideologies change? How have you evolved as an individual right now? I'd love to know. And with that being said, do not forget that I love you and God loves you, and I will see you beautiful angels in my next video. Mwah.